The One Piece live action show has just aired, and it is a love letter to all the One Piece fans out there, but it's also a good show. Overall, it's a good show. Yes, there's a lot of things in this show that you cannot really adapt. The One Piece world is a unique world with a lot of weird and wonderful things, but it's done a good job. So let's run through it and we'll go into as much detail as possible. As a long-term One Piece fan, someone who's been watching One Piece since, I don't know, almost close to a decade now. I've been reading One Piece, watching One Piece, so I'm a fan. So I will be critical, but at the same time, I will also have some nostalgia from my side. But I'm gonna try to be as balanced as possible. Let's start with Luffy. Luffy is done really well. Iñaki does a great job, and to be fair, I didn't think Luffy could be adapted into a live action, but they did it. They found a way to present Luffy, and it's as close as Luffy as you're going to get. Yes, there are still some things that are really hard to adapt into live action, so you have to give him some freedom for that. You know, his rubber fruit is a very, very hard thing to adapt, but they do a good job overall. And the character, the soul of Luffy, it's all there. His naivety, his carelessness, his optimism, his confidence in himself, everything, it's all there. So Luffy, hats off. They nailed it as best as you could in a live action, in my opinion. Alvida, I don't know. She looked like Alvida. She behaved like Alvida, but they did leave out the most beautiful thing, which I thought would have been, would have added a little touch to her. But overall, no complaints. Roger didn't feel so imposing as I'd expect. I don't know, he seemed more like a gutter rat than Roger. Like, Roger was meant to be the pirate king. He didn't feel like the pirate king. He felt more like the village rat. Roger was the one character that, there's a few others as well, but Roger was the main one that I was like, I don't really like that casting. Garp, yeah, they nailed Garp. Vincent Regan, epic job as Garp. He looks like Garp, he talks like Garp, he acts like Garp, he has Garp's confidence, Garp's, determination, his principles, but also they got across Garp's conflict with everything else, with what he does, what he thinks, what he believes, and understanding that there is a grey area that he has to operate in sometimes, and Garp does that quite well. Vincent Regan brings Garp across perfect. Kobe, another character that they actually got quite accurate. I mean, he is Kobe. Well, there's nothing else to say. He is Kobe. He looks like Kobe, acts like Kobe, and especially in the earlier part of Kobe, is a coward, and they portray that quite well. But he also has principles. They portray that quite well too. Young Luffy does a great job. The only thing that kind of threw me off a little is it didn't look like a young Iñaki. Even though it was meant to be a young Iñaki, it didn't look like him. That threw me off a little. I didn't see how the kid that played young Luffy grew into the guy who plays older Luffy. But in terms of playing young Luffy, the kid nailed it. Makino, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, didn't work for me. She didn't look like her. I don't know. I didn't get that feel that was her. She also seemed like she had very little to say. I don't think that she was used too well. I don't know. That one wasn't for me. Helmeppo, quite accurate. It looked like Helmeppo, acted like Helmeppo, so no complaints there. Not much to say about him, but that's Helmeppo. Emily Rudd played Nami really well. Yes, she wasn't as front-loaded as the anime version, but the soul of Nami, the character of Nami, everything, she nailed it. She did a really good job. And I don't know if she's a One Piece fan or not, but hats off to her as well. She did really well. Now we have to move into two of my favorite characters. And yeah, I'm going to be critical, but at the same time, I'm going to appreciate it where it's done well. So bear with me. First, Makinyo. It's the guy who plays Zoro, and guy nailed it. It was cool as ice. Martial arts were on point. The character's appearance was on point. Like, this is Zoro. Like, I don't know how I would have done Zoro better. Zoro was nailed, and Zoro was perfect. Now, on the other hand, we had Shanks. Shanks is my other favorite character. And I felt like the guy didn't look like Shanks. And I don't know, there's something about him that seemed off. And it bugged me, because Shanks is one of my favorite characters. But to be fair to him, he captured the soul of Shanks. He played the character really well. There was Shanks's passiveness, Shanks's wisdom, Shanks's mentorship, all of that. It captured all of that well. It's just the way he looked bugged me. Besides that, overall, Peter Galdot did a decent job at portraying Shanks. It just doesn't look like Shanks very much. I mean, it has all the aesthetics, but I don't know. Something was off for me. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty. The actual episode itself. In short, the episode's about Luffy finally taking off to sea, starting to build his crew, starting to set out his objectives of what he wants to do, and the fact that he wants to reach the Grand Line. That's the base of the episode. Now, how that's done, it's a little different to the anime and comic at certain points, and certain points it keeps quite true. His interaction with Zoro very early, that's different, but it works. It keeps to what you'd expect it to look like if it happened this way, even though it didn't happen this way. Same thing with how he recruits Zoro, so that's another difference. But overall, the feel of it feels very One Piece. I like the flashback style of going back to telling you pieces of the story without telling you everything about how he came to his powers, how he met Shanks. It's covered in flashbacks and stuff like that, which was nice. It didn't feel like it was too drawn out. So there was a good pacing to the episode. Somebody into One Piece, I can see there's some qualms that you could have with the episode. The fact that Baroque Works was introduced quite early. There's certain fights that were talked about and alluded to that were never shown, but in this it is shown. There's differences about how he gets onto Alvida's ship. Doesn't really show that. So there's a few differences from the manga and anime to what the live action portrays, but overall it keeps to the soul of One Piece. Garp being introduced so early and his goal of why he's introduced so early into the show is different too, but it works, and I'm kind of glad it was a little different. I didn't really want a like for like adaptation, because then there'd be nothing new in it for the long-time One Piece fans. Let them be creative, let them tell us a story that keeps true to the soul of One Piece, but a little different here and there. Some things bug me a little bit more because it affects the overall lore. Some things I don't care so much about, but there are things that you're like, I wish they didn't do that because it affects other parts of the story later on in the manga. I was happy, I enjoyed the show. It was entertaining, it was refreshing, and a lot of things that I didn't think would portray well into a live action, they did quite well. Some things did look a little awkward, which I expected because One Piece is wild and wacky, so there's some things you just cannot adapt into a live action. So fair play to them, they did a good job, it came out quite well, and overall I'm quite impressed. I'm happy just for the fact that I've got some more One Piece. But at the same time, it's a good show that I feel like people who are not into One Piece could get into. So for the first episode, I'll give it a rating, and most of my ratings will be based on a outsider's view and try to take myself out of my One Piece hat and go into just looking at it as a show rather than looking at it as a One Piece fan. There are characters that I didn't cover in this review because they don't show up until later in the show. That's done intentionally. When they do show up in the episodes, I will cover them as they show up, or else I'll have a long list of casts to go through. This way we can cover the main casts that we see, but also cover the main point of each story. And as we go closer to the next story, we'll talk about the next story. So the only final points about this episode is I did like Den Den Mushi's layout. I don't know how you live adapt that without it looking a little scary, so you know, it is what it is, but it works for me. I like it, I don't mind it. The bounty posters, I do like the bounty posters. They came out quite nicely, and I love the fact that all the characters interact with their bounty posters as they show them, the fact that they highlighted them. It's a great start to the show, and some of these characters are going to develop and they start to grow on you. Even the ones that you're kind of a bit iffy about, they grow on you. Check it out, let me know what you think.